Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fourth session of our Young Professional Cameroonian Mentorship webinar. That's session 4. Today, the 28th of September, 2025. It's gone just 10 past 6, and we are just about to kick off. And before we do, perhaps I should start by saying that this session will be co-moderated. We have a number of CamDoc executive members actually joining us as traditional on this. Some of them I just need to quickly wave. Let's start with the chair of CamDocUK, Dr. Linda Bello, who is a GP and an examiner. Linda, you just want to wave? So there we go. So we just push for time, so just a wave, but I'm sure at some point Linda will be have a word or two to do, especially with the closing remarks. After Linda is the chairperson of CamDocUK for probably going to 5-6 years now. Re-elected because we don't want her to go. We keep re-electing her. The fantastic job that she's doing. After Linda, we have also Dr. Kojo Ndenecho, who is the vice chair, and we can see the prince of a wing right there in his princely hat. He's a vice chair. Kojo is a forensic examiner. He's also a medical examiner and a NHS in the UK. Linda is a GP in the UK. Kojo is also the executive, all based in the UK, and presently the executive of CamDocUK. Kojo will be the co-moderator. In addition to Kojo as co-moderator, we have Dr. Collins Asa'ah. Dr. Collins Asa'ah is a Commonwealth scholar in training on non-communicable diseases here in the UK, based at the St. Mary's University in Twickenham in West London. Co-moderator. We have those are the three so far. Add that as to myself, which I will come to later. But let's recognize those who have really given us they're giving us their expertise and time today. As panelists, we have. I will introduce the panel as each of them come to speak. But let me just do a rundown. We have Amanda Burns, UK and Australia, but presently joining us from Derbyshire in the UK. Oh no, I think Amanda should be somewhere in Europe presently, probably but she will tell us when she comes to speak. But she does shuttle between UK and Australia. Mrs. Claris Angafor, who is you can see the princess right there in the background. It says it all. Claris is based in Basingstoke, in Hampshire, in the UK. Then we have Dr. Rachael Ntongho, CSN Ntongho, because Rachel and myself, we're both from Bangwa ethnicity in Cameroon, so that's why I can pronounce it so well. Rachel is a lecturer in law at the University of Manchester. But I will come a little bit later when each and everyone. Okay, so we have, we are moderator for today, Chief Asa'ah from Fontaine. I'm the head of the international committee at CamDocUK. Aside from that, I'm a clinical scientist. I'm a public health consultant. I run a hospital at home business in the UK. So I'll be the moderator for today. What we're looking at doing here is that we'll give each of the panelists 15 minutes to speak. After the three panelists, that takes us 45 minutes. Then we'll have an open house Q&A, question and answers. And then the Q&A, at the point of Q&A, the co-moderators will take over the microphone to address question answers. And we invite all those who are actually joining us to please go into the platform and leave your questions. There is a chat, I think there's on the reaction button, you can actually access the panel where you can leave questions. Those questions are being monitored by the backroom team of moderators and co-moderators. Some of them might be answered instantly, but others might need to, would then be form the subject of a Q&A. So please go on there, leave your questions, leave your comments. And also before we exit this, before we close, we advise, plead to you to go back and give your feedback to what you thought, how we can actually improve this webinar session. And indeed, if people have any further career areas that they would like addressed, the suggestions can come in. Either you leave your suggestions in the chat room or to international@camdocuk.org, and we'll pick that and make sure that we try and get someone who is a specialist in that area as a member of future subsequent panels. Those that have already been to the panel so far, who have been panelists so far, we have a log of all the various sessions. These sessions are logged in our website, camdocuk.org. They're also accessed them through YouTube. And we just want to reassure, also just say that because the career mentorship initiative, we share this information with various universities in Cameroon so that they can also use that to orientate students in the universities in Cameroon. The history of this initiative goes back 20 years when we were looking at how we could actually facilitate Cameroonians to access at the time to access the City of London and Stock Exchange. Very successful. The model we used that time was a face-to-face meeting. 20 years later, we are now in the world of social media. Now we are using the Zoom, or rather face-to-face meetings we used to have when we started this in the early 2000s. So without further ado, we're going to start. We are now at 6:18. People are joining. The number is increasing. I forgot to mention that such is the success of this initiative that increasingly now we're having people coming to us. So please, the panelists, we plead with you because we might, even after your session, we might have to link you with people who might want to seek further information from you. And of course, the win for us will be to develop mentorship links after due scrutiny, of course. We have due scrutiny because we have to recognize that we have to follow statutory approaches in this thing as per CamDoc policy. So, but we actually have forbearance that we might find out we then have to send some people to you to help us with mentorship. We are already receiving information on apprenticeship. The current UK government is very hot on apprenticeship. So we've received information here on a lot of apprenticeship information, a lot of apprenticeships that are currently available. So those of you who are actually logging on, if you're based in the UK and you would like to get involved, you would like to benefit from some of the apprenticeships that are going on, please contact CamDocUK. We've got just came in today, dozens of apprenticeship that the UK government is actually offering. Perhaps in a way, try to challenge the whole issue about the big immigration debate that's going on, perhaps to challenge the inflow of migrants. They're looking at how to effectively offer opportunities to those who are based in the country. So those who are based in the country, there's apprenticeship going where you actually, you earn a salary as you're actually training. So CamDoc has got that resource available to those who are interested. Okay, and the previous panelists, we have, I just point out Professor Lukong, who was in one of the previous panels based in Saskatchewan in Canada. He did play with those, he did make an offer that those who are interested in integrating into the medical system in Canada is offering to actually help us, those who, when people that will signpost to him to help them how to navigate the system in Canada. So the resource is already becoming very, very robust as we progress. I just, while I was introducing the backroom team, I forgot to introduce Dr. Anna Benenga, who is the Communication Secretary of CamDocUK. And in fact, the key person behind this platform that we're actually working on. Anna is presently maybe just waving. Yes, Anna is waving there from, she's a chemical pathologist and also a medical examiner based at Pinderfield Hospital in Yorkshire in the UK. Okay, other CamDoc members, there are quite a few of them around. Already I can see Dr. Anne Barbarinsa. Anyway, oh, Dr. Valentine is right there. The head of, previous head of education, the education lead for CamDocUK, Mojoko, quite a few others. You can tell that I'm just trying to kill a bit of time while waiting for more people to join us, because people are really, because of those who join now may not be aware, but we had an issue, a technical issue with the IG. That has been corrected. So some people might now be joining following that. That's why we are bearing time to give a few more minutes. We're already at 6:22. Okay. So we are ready to go. So we're going to start with Amanda Burns and then followed by Claris Angafor and Rachael Ntongho, and I'll be introducing each of them as we go on. Our very first presenter today is Amanda Burns. Amanda Burns is a qualified registered dual registration in nursing in the UK as well as in Australia. Amanda works in emergency nursing and also works in Outpost Nursing in the UK and Australia. One of the reasons why we thought it would be very useful to have Amanda in the panel today is the unique potential that Amanda is offering for those who are looking at moving away from the routine nursing per se, because as a career mentorship platform, we are trying to effectively open up people's opportunities to look at the wider world. And apart from, rather than just looking at the routine nursing per se, we're looking at the innovative side of things, because the world of work today is changing rapidly. And it is important that we look at new avenues, trailblazers. Amanda is doing just that from UK, Derbyshire, Midlands, now working in the Australia. So Amanda will be going first, and I'll let Amanda to introduce herself. Amanda Burns, you've got a microphone.
Thank you, Dr. Asa'ah, and hello to the very esteemed company. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all and hopefully share some of, well, my journey and some of my insights. The first thing I want to tell you about, I'm going to share my screen. So because I just prepared 5 slides just with some photos and to capture what I do, where I do it, and some of the highlights and challenges of what I do. So let me just put my specs on. Window, I am going to share. So what do I do? I am a registered nurse and I work in Australia and I also work in the UK. So I work in remote spaces. I work in rural and remote spaces in Australia. So here you'll see some photographs of the red dirt out in Australia, and I work in those spaces in Aboriginal communities. And I've also included a map there of the places that I've worked, which is spread all over Australia and majority, and then also in the UK. So as I say, I'm also an emergency nurse. I've worked in the NHS, in the Channel Islands, and also in a big trauma hospital in Australia. And it's an amazing privilege to be able to work on an international stage. It is incredible to be able to look after people across the spectrum of life and across international borders. And I'm very cognizant of the fact that to be able to work, especially in Aboriginal places, is very special. It's interesting to know that when I work in these spaces, I actually have to apply to the elders to actually go there and work in their countries. So it's a very interesting job and role that I do. And as Dr. Asa'ah says, it's definitely outside of the normal. Most people work in a hospital and stay within that confines of their local area, whereas I seek and have sought to actually work across different boundaries and different places. So I guess the question is, how did I get here? Just before I move on, I'll just tell you about these photos that I've got there. Bottom left, that is out at Uluru. I had the privilege to work in the community of Aboriginal people there at the base of Ayers Rock, what was now known as Uluru. And yeah, it was a very special time. So how did I get here? How did I get to do this journey? Well, it's quite a snakes and ladders kind of journey. I actually started nursing when I left school. I wanted to be a nurse, and so I went straight from school into a hospital-based training many, many years ago. I did 12 months of that course, and I did not complete it, and I went off and actually ended up selling lipsticks at a department store. And then I had a 20-odd year career in the beauty industry. But I'd always volunteered at my local hospital and always in the back of my mind wanted to get back into healthcare. So approaching midlife, typical midlife crisis, and looked back on my life and considered, am I who I thought I would be? Am I doing what I thought I would do when I was a little girl? And on reflection, I thought to myself, no, I'm not. So I quit my big job and I went back to university and completed my degree. It's interesting to know too, the first time I did nursing, I failed anatomy and physiology 1 and 2. And then the second time I did it, which was 20 odd years later, I actually topped my class and earned the university medal for the best marks. So that was incredible. And I knew during my degree that I was really intrigued by rural and remote spaces. I knew that I wanted to go where the red dirt is and where there's just into that massive world out there. So I knew that to do that, I had to do emergency nursing, because when you're working in those remote spaces, often there are no doctors. Often you have a doctor, but they're on the phone or they're on a video, telehealth medicine. So you have to be very resourceful. So I knew that I needed to become an emergency nurse first. So the journey, I was very strategic about it. So I finished my degree. I had a look around at the options, and I knew that I wanted to learn from the best in the business. And I was fortunate enough to live down the road from a fantastic emergency department. Actually, at the time, that was in Brisbane, Australia. And so I was fortunate to get a grad position, and I did my time there as an emergency nurse, which was amazing. I also completed my postgraduate degree in nursing, emergency nursing at that time. And I got exposed to the whole plethora of emergency nursing and all the different presentations that a busy trauma hospital gets. So that was fantastic. Then I knew that I wanted to move out to remote spaces, but I did the intermediary step. So I knew that working remote, like I said, where there's no doctors, is a big step. So I went into the middle stage. In Australia is rural nursing. So in Australia, we have the big cities and then we have little rural towns. And the little rural towns are often farming communities. They often have a GP model, a GP that works in the town, who then comes into the hospital when to see the patients. So I did that first. I did that for a few years, getting my experience of being in these rural places. And then after that, then I went out to remote Australia and out working with the Aboriginal people. And in the meantime, in the last few years, I've also come over to the UK and have done some work, as I said, in the NHS and also down in the Channel Islands, even working on a little tiny island called Alderney, which is has a GP model of care and has evacuations done by small planes. So that's sort of my journey up until this point. Now, going out remote, so it's a big step to go from working in an emergency department and then going remote. So how did I also do this strategically? I made sure that I built a toolbox. So the toolbox needed to include some extra skills over and above what you would normally do as an emergency nurse. For example, one of the courses I took was maternity emergency care. So basically catching a baby in the bush. So when you work out in remote spaces, like I said, you can get anything coming through the door, and a doctor can be many miles away, often in the town, and you're dealing with the doctor on the phone. So if a woman comes in with, say, in labor, I did a course where it could help me understand what to do in that situation and give me a bit of extra confidence. So before going out rural and remote, I made sure that I filled my toolbox full of these courses and got some extra qualifications. So it's pretty exciting out there, and there are some highs and lows. So what are the highlights? So for me, some of the highlights is definitely the autonomy. So I think that's a fabulous word for a remote area nurse, which is what I am, and the autonomy, but autonomy within safe boundaries. So knowing your scope of practice, working within certain guidelines of what you can and can't do, and being independent, but also being very responsible as well. And having the toolbox, as I've said, that you can pull on different skills that you've learned throughout your journey, but also not being afraid to ask questions and not being afraid to admit when you don't know something and then be able to find the answer from the right place. So the highlights for me are definitely the autonomy within the certain boundaries of being a remote area nurse. I think another highlight for me definitely has been the rewards. Now, rewards, I'm not just talking financial, and for sure, it is a well-paid job for a nurse to do, but the rewards definitely go beyond financial. It is also about being personally rewarding. For example, I was working out in a remote space in Western Australia last year, and I was working in the clinic, but I was going a few days a week out to the local school as the school nurse. And I built a relationship with the little kindergarten children. And at the end of my contract, I was there for 2-3 months. And at the end of my contract, the beautiful little kindergarten class, which was called the Joeys, gave me this beautiful card that they'd all used finger paints, and they'd actually written me a poem, and they had all colored this beautiful card, which I still keep. So, and they gave me so much more than I gave them because of the connection. And like I said, the privilege of working with this community and with this population group was very special. And of course, I also have the amazing travel and exploration, which I love. I'm very much someone who considers myself to be a global citizen, and people ask me, where are you from? I don't have a short answer. So I love the fact that my work can take me across the horizon into new spaces and into new countries. Now, what are the challenges? So I think one of the challenges is definitely, and I put this here, Doctors ABC, because for me, the first thing as an emergency nurse is we think about danger, we think about safety. And definitely I work in remote areas, and I work in places where the closest policeman's 300 miles away. So the first consideration is always safety. And how do I cope with that? How do I address that in my work? Well, when I take a contract, I always speak to the employer, and we interview each other. We see if it's a good fit. And one of the first things I ask them about is the lone worker policy, because I don't work in places where I go out alone to see a patient. I always work in places where there is a local person, generally someone from the community who speaks the community language, because definitely out in Aboriginal Australia, there are 300 different languages, and I don't speak their languages. I learn a few words, but I certainly can't communicate appropriately or fully. So I make sure that I work in places where I'm supported, and that safety element is very much the first thing we think about. And also, there's also the environmental factors. I put a picture of a snake here because definitely snakes. There are also challenges with wide open spaces and heat exhaustion. We think about all these things. There is another thing when I think about challenges, and I remember one of the things that's hard is when the phone rings. I had a call once. I was miles away, two days away from getting back to my family, and I had the phone ring, and it was my mum. She was in hospital and I needed to get there. So this is one of the challenges, and it's one of the things we consider when we do this job. Now, some can-do advice. If you're intrigued, interested in doing something as crazy as being a remote area nurse or a rural remote nurse or working in these amazing spaces, I guess my advice to you is to use the building blocks. So like myself, I think being strategic, getting the toolbox right. So making sure, for me, it was always about getting emergency nursing experience first, and then building on that with my courses, like my midwifery. It wasn't a midwifery course, but it was an emergency midwifery course. And then also making sure you're resilient and that you are ready for it as well, because it is an absolutely awesome job out there. And step by step, I believe that anybody can do it. So yes, it's a fantastic job, and I can recommend it to anybody.
Wow.
Lovely. Thank you.
Wonderful presentation. I found it, and I hope everyone else is finding it the same way. Let me just say that Amanda has kindly, like all the other panelists, accepted to stay on so that they can take part in the Q&A section. So please keep your questions logged and have your questions when we get to the Q&A session. What I would just like to find out from one burning issue is, for someone who has worked in the UK and in Australia, you know, it opens up new vistas for those in the UK who are looking at moving elsewhere for work. Australia seems to be the in thing now, just like those in Cameroon who are also looking at coming to the UK. How are you actually, how do you settle in the environment?
That's a great question. How do I settle? It's a very good question that all remote or nurses talk about. And the way we do it, well, the way I do it is I have some special things that I travel with. I have my pillow, a little travel pillow. I have my coffee pot. I have my sharp knife. So I have some things that become, and I have a couple of postcards that I put on the wall. And so I have some special things that whenever I arrive anywhere, it makes me feel like home.
Wow. So the typical thing, those of us, this is not about me, but like I said, I run a hospital at home project, and we bring staff from all over the world to come and work here because we're trying to free up hospital beds from the days of the COVID issue. And the challenge you find is when the staff they get here is you have to resettle them. That's why we're trying to find out how your experience is something that will be very useful for them, because we bring nurses here from, say, Cameroon. They arrive here it took take quite a while for them to really settle in as much. Anyway, we will come back to you, and I'm sure there'll be questions. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, and let us move on to the next presenter. The next person to speak this afternoon is Claris Angafor. One of the things that this YPCN committee, because there's a backroom committee that's actually effectively orchestrating all what I'm fronting here as a moderator. It was important for us to look at another vista for the new area of work, because we are trying to look at how we can actually advise the young ones, the recent graduates in areas that actually exist out there, and employment. The world of work is changing. And one of those areas is actually advocacy management. Advocacy management is that area where there are people that need to be empowered in our society, and there are others who will make that as a career to actually empower those people to achieve their full potential, to address their activities of daily living. And so Claris Angafor is a speech and language therapist, is also autism ambassador for Hampshire in the UK. Claris has a very interesting background as to how she actually evolved to where she actually is. She's now did all sorts, quality assurance, data management, and all. And fascinating how much work-life balance she has to address as a mom, a professional worker, and of course, an advocacy manager. So, Claris Angafor, you've got the microphone.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Claris Angafor, and as it's been said already, I am a newly qualified speech and language therapist. So I've already worked as a speech and language therapist in a secondary school. It's a year now, but I didn't start as a speech and language therapist. Obviously, you come into this country, most often we start from the very bare minimum. So this is actually a journey for us, starting from a cleaner in a care home, working my way up to being a carer in the same care home, moving up to working in the hospital, in the NHS hospital, in different roles, and then also juggling parenthood, and not any ordinary parent, but a parent of a special needs child with autism and other disabilities. And now, just a year ago, I qualified as a speech and language therapist. So this was me last year when I worked, when I had my work placement at the Bingo Baptist Hospital in Com, which is where I originate from, and also at Bingo Annex in Bamenda. So working as a speech and language therapist at the moment, maybe for those who may not really understand what speech and language therapy is. So speech and language therapy is the clinical practice of supporting individuals with speech, language, communication, swallowing, feeding, and voice issues or voice difficulties to people of all ages, either children, adults, in different settings, maybe in a school, in the community, in the homes, or in the hospital, in hospitals. So I provide specialist speech and language therapies at the moment to children aged 13 to 18 in a secondary school here in Hampshire. I am also involved in the assessment, in report writing, and formulation of appropriate interventions for these individuals in order to know exactly how to support them with their speech language communication and social, emotional, and mental health issues. And while doing that, I am actively involved in engaging with parents, with teachers, with Senkos, and in general, the MDT team. So how I went into this field, because I discovered the power of communication, parenting a special needs child. At first, I used to think that once you can hear, it's easy to talk, but it came as a shock to me. It came as a surprise to me when I was raising my child, and I realized that he can't talk, but he communicates. That's when I started realizing that there's more to communication than just speech. So it has been a transformative experience for me, and it opened my eyes to this journey. So my intention is actually to bridge the gap between worlds, which is one of the reasons I actually went to work in Cameroon. So, and in this journey as well, many people actually think, because many people have come to me complaining, my child cannot talk, my child doesn't have any verbal communication. Then they get surprised when I ask, your child cannot talk, but can they communicate? Many have asked, what is the difference between communication and speech? So still under the power of communication while parenting my son, I realized that I was already doing some form of therapy right here in my own home. I also realized that there were lots of nonverbal cues, the eye contact, eye shut, looking, maybe pulling you, taking you to an object or pushing, or even crying. Those are all forms of communication. I actually learned that you need to listen more than just hearing. So I had to listen even with my eyes, because there may be a communication that you will miss, because he may point, he may do make a sign which you will not pick it up, but you have to have eyes all over. And that's when I finally realized that there's connection beyond just language. There's more to communication than just speech. And I started understanding more about autism when I went into study autism and Asperger, and I had my first, my postgraduate certificate. That was mainly because I was raising a child with autism. I realized that there was a lot to understand, there was a lot to learn, and also because I decided at some point that I had to go into advocacy, because there was a lot of stigma, there was a lot of shame around my family, around my child, and the way we were treated as a family differently from any other, and the way my child was being treated differently from any other children, because some will react as if his disability or as if his autism is contagious. So initially, I used to get really upset, but I realized that if I turn this anger into something positive, it's not going to help only me, but it will help individuals. And I started raising awareness on autism, encouraging love, understanding, acceptance, and inclusion. So I included my environment in it. I included my community and made sure everyone was aware. I also realized that autism affects people differently, especially with their communication. You may see a child with autism who is nonverbal. You will see another child who is very verbal, very fluent, and you will see another who will be fluent, will be very verbal, but is repeating words, which is called echolalia, which is another area that I understood that each child that is autistic is unique, is different, because it's usually said once you've met one individual with autism, you've met just that one individual. And now my experience now moving towards becoming an expert, I should say, or becoming a professional based on my lived experience, because I realized that parenting a nonverbal child, it presented numerous challenges and opportunities that reshaped the way I understood communication, that reshaped the way I saw everything that was happening around me. Because at first, if you asked me, I would have said communication is the ability to speak, but it's completely different. So with the daily experiences that I had with my child, I learned and I decided to go a little bit further. So I will talk a few lessons while raising my child, so that I should head forward to how I became a speech and language therapist. So I learned about humility and patience. I learned that I was already a therapist to my son, and I wanted to become this therapist to other individuals out there. I also learned that you should never estimate the wisdom of a lived experience, because some people will just say, oh, she just has a child with autism, so she's not any professional. But there's a professional who has a lived experience. And I also learned that it's never too late to achieve your goals, and that whether you are raising a child with autism or you're raising a child with any form of a disability, it's never too late. Yes, when these challenges come your way, they may delay your future, but there's still a future if you really want to. And I went back into uni. I was 46. Now I am 48. I'm almost in my 50, but I just recently graduated with my second master. So I learned it's never too late to pursue your dreams. So how I got into this field was because of raising, I called him Prof. Les. So he opened the path for me, which is my lived experience. This is a journey that was called by love and led by purpose and also passion. And this passion is the passion that I have in making a difference to not only to my child, but to any other child out there, to any other family, same as mine, that's raising a child with a disability. So using my experience with a postgraduate in autism and Asperger's, I could also enroll in this field. And I have worked over 10 years of experience working with the NHS from different roles, ranging from a cleaner, a carer, right up to data quality analyst, which was the last role that I had before I studied to become a speech and language therapist. And I've also worked with as a support worker with young adults who have autism, learning disability, and other forms of disability. So these are the different experiences that I use. But my main motivation to go into this field was raising my son, who is growing up now. He's 19, he's autistic, and then he is still nonverbal. So how do you become a speech and language therapist? How do you go into this field? So there are different routes. You can become a speech and language therapist by enrolling into a university here in the UK, and it can be an undergraduate, a postgraduate, which is what I went into for. So that was a fast track 2-year, very, very challenging 2 years. There's also the degree apprenticeship, which Chief Dr. Asa'ah mentioned earlier, and this is very recent here in the UK. There are other degree apprenticeships in other sectors, maybe in nursing and in other fields within the NHS, but the SALT one has recently just come, and my university, Essex University, started this, I think last year or in 2022. For entry requirements, if you want to become a speech and language therapist, you have your GCSEs, you also have your A-levels, you also have the volunteering or youth lived experience like myself, and then working in other roles as well as your qualifications. Then about funding, if you are interested in this field, there is funding. For undergraduates, you can pay that amount. There's also the postgraduate. Undergraduate in some universities, like maybe in Reading, it's a 3-year program that goes up to, I think it's called an MPhil, which it's 4 years. So you take 3 years to do the undergraduate, and then you take the last year to qualify to have a master's. However, they do offer the 2-year M.Sc program as well. So there's also financial support when you are doing this course, and this is for home students. You have the NHS Learning Support Fund, which is about 5,000. You also have the student finance, and then the apprenticeship route, which in this case, you don't pay fees, but you are working while studying and also earning a salary. However, if you are very viable, you can go into this course and pay the 9,200 a year, or and also it's open for international students. It's expensive as well, as more expensive than home students. However, while I was studying, there were students from abroad who were studying this program, and there are lots of scholarship programs for them as well. So there are a few universities here. Not every university in the UK offers this, and not every university offers the M.Sc course. So if you want to go into SALT and you would like to do the undergraduate, these are some of the universities. Obviously, University of Essex, University of Reading, University of, I think University of Southampton. Wherever you live, there are a few of them that offer this course. And the M.Sc course as well, you also have University of Essex, which is where I graduated from, and University of Reading, which is just nearby. And so highlights about being a SALT, being a speech and language therapy. There are those communication skills that we teach individuals. I mentioned earlier that I support autistic individuals with a speech language communication and social, emotional, and mental health issues. So you help these individuals to be able to look for appropriate ways to communicate in social settings, because autism affects a child's communication, may affect the way a child communicates. For example, for those who are non-verbal, we help them now. We look for different tools. So if a child cannot communicate verbally, how else can they communicate? That's where we come in now, to look for different tools, to look for alternative methods. That's where the AAC, the augmentative alternative communication, comes in. Is it picture books? Is it text? Is it Proloquo, which is what my son uses? It's an app in his iPad which acts as his voice. He selects the sentences. And another very interesting thing about speech and language is the emotional expression. Many of our autistic individuals do not know. They struggle to identify, label, and express their emotions. A speech and language therapist now comes in to help these individuals to be able to identify, to label, and express their emotions. Some autistic individuals do not know how to show these expressions. Even if they are happy, they are sad, it's hard because they have flat affect. So it's very difficult to see these emotions on their face, but we come in now to help them. Social development, speech and language therapists also help, because some of them do struggle with social interaction. So we look for ways for them to be able to interact socially with their peers, with their families, and some other people. And while doing this, we also help them to boost their confidence. We also help others, maybe people with learning disabilities who have maybe speech problems, who have other form, maybe cognitive development, to be able to live a better life, to look for ways to manage their condition or their disability. Also, it's a career advancement for someone who wants to change, like myself, or someone who wants to go into maybe something that is challenging, but it's equally rewarding, a career that will help you make a difference in the face of others, not only to the person you are supporting, also to their family. I was a data quality analyst. Most of my work was done behind the scenes. Yes, I was making a difference to individuals in the hospitals, but I couldn't feel it. Right now, while I'm supporting individuals, you can actually see, you can see the gradual impact or the gradual change or progress that you are making in a child's life. It may not be one day, it may not be 2 days, but gradually you actually see that yesterday, this boy that I'm supporting could not tell me how he's feeling. I actually have one. Every day he comes into my session and he tells me. So we say, okay, it's emotion check-in. How are you feeling? He tells me he feels mediocre, and he will argue that mediocre is a feeling. So gradually we've worked our way up, moving from being mediocre to say, okay, I feel frustrated. I'm saying I feel mediocre because I feel average. I feel nobody likes me. So those are some of those gradual processes. Those are some of the things that you see that you are making a change in the life of an individual. And like I said, you don't only support an individual, you also support the family. It's amazing going into a job, going into a new career where you know that there's a flexibility to choose which area you want to work in. If you want to work with adults, maybe adults with Parkinson's disease, adults with dementia, maybe people who have had traumatic brain injury and now they have conditions like aphasia or dysarthria, or people who have had a stroke and now they have issues with their language or with their expression or with their communication in total. We can support them as adults. Also, if you don't want to work with adults, you can equally work with children as a pediatric speech and language therapist, which is what I am right now, working in a hospital, working in homes, even supporting individuals privately or in the community or in the school, as I am working at the moment. So what I'll say is, anyone listening, what are you waiting for? This is an interesting career. It's an interesting change. However, it has its highlights, like I have highlighted there. It also has its challenges because many of us Africans are not still very much aware of this field, because many of us feel that if you want to go into this field, you must be a typical British person to become a speech and language therapist. I remember when I mentioned to a few individuals, that I'm going to speech and language therapies. Once they hear speech, they know it's about English, it's about linguistics. Yes, when you're studying to become a speech and language therapist, you also do linguistics, you also do phonetics, because you need to know about grammar. You need to know some of those little sentences that a child makes when they're growing up in order to be able to assess their language development. Sometimes it may be just phonetic awareness that they don't know. Maybe children are pronouncing words, like maybe if it's yellow, a child may say lelo. So we're coming out to assess to see whether is this age appropriate or not. But what I want to say is, being a speech and language therapist, it has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with color or where you come from, whether you come from Africa or which country. It requires the passion, the skills, the dedication, and that compassion that you have if you want to go into it. So do not be scared if you're thinking, oh, I don't have a British accent, so I cannot become a speech and language therapist. No. As speech and language therapists, we support anyone speaking any dialect with any accent, because I can transcribe based on the little knowledge that I had from doing phonetics. I can transcribe any language. So I will assess a child, even if they are speaking in maybe in Kom, which is my dialect, in Bambui, which is my second dialect, or even in Dr. Asa'ah's dialect, because there are also services that you can bring in, like interpreters. There are these challenges. Also, there are issues where some parents or some students will not want you once they realize that you are not the typical person from that country, maybe with your skin color. Some of them are not used to working, because when you're working one-to-one with the child, it's very close contact. You are working together, so you are forming a relationship. Some of our children struggle to make that relationship with us. Some of them accept to try and see if it's going to work, but some will just refuse instantly. There are also challenges where if you work in a school or in an environment where your caseload is heavy, you also have to learn how to manage your time and manage your caseload, and also manage your other things out of your workplace. Very, very important. I shouldn't forget to mention this. This is if you're going for the masters, it's very intense. It is fast track. So which means somehow mentally you have to be ready in order to go into this field. And if you think you are not ready mentally, please seek help, seek support before you go into it. Hello. So while I'm heading towards the end, I would just want to say every journey becomes with a single step. Your step, if you're watching and you're already thinking of going into this field, your step starts now. So start where you are with what you have. You will be amazed in the end. Many of us shoot ourselves on the legs all the time because we think that we cannot do it, because we think maybe because I'm raising a child with a disability, because I wasn't very intelligent at school, or because I am not a British, or because I don't have enough money, I will not be able to go into certain courses or to further my studies. No, you will have the help that you need if you ask for it. There were times that I struggled. There were days I could just go in and I asked to speak to someone at the well-being team, because I acknowledged and I noticed that I needed help. And when you go in to ask for that help, they are aware that once in a while you need help, and they will support you. Even when it's time to support to submit assignments, they will support you as long as you ask for the help. So do not forgo pursuing your career, pursuing your future, because you think you are not ready financially, because you think that there are things holding you back, or because you think it's going to be too expensive. The difficult part is the start. Once you start, you will get there. So that is me. Thank you so much. And this is how you can contact me. Thank you.
Just saying that wonderful presentation, and you notice that you overran the time, but we let it flow because of the important message. I think the key issue here is why CamDoc actually decided to address this particular topic as part of the career mentorship framework. We thought it should be on panel today. Is to say that, like I've said it so many times, the world of work is changing. The world today is moving towards equity more in terms of diversity, inclusion. And in order to achieve diversity, inclusion in the world today, they need advocacy managers. And you have demonstrated that. And this is one of the things that we're hoping that those who are watching can realize that there is a whole new trail there being opened up. And you're actually blazing that trail. You started from experience. Your experience led to a development. You then gain expertise. And that expertise then led to a career. And this is sort of thing that we want people to begin to look at, rather than the traditional way of job openings. We look at how we can actually create balancing that. I know that you've overrun it, but then we have the Q&A section coming, and we're very grateful that we know you have opted to actually stay on, because at the end of the day, where does advocacy take us to? The world, you're talking about the WHO, for example, was at the behest of infectious diseases, but advocacy means that non-infectious issues are also coming in. You're talking about through advocacy, like what you're doing, it begins to give a priority. I would expect that you might want to discuss perspectives of how do you take this all the way to the WHO to actually achieve resolutions, to why not the UN? So, but we'll come to that. Please stay with us. And of course, what we also like to know is how you balance, because the risk here is that passion that came across as you were speaking. The risk here is that passion might therefore, that conflict might effectively create a bias in the way in your professional, in the operation of your profession. Those are some of the things we'll tease around when we come to Q&A. So please stay with us. Our next speaker is important. Now, we started this session today with essentially, I use the expression bush faller, where somebody's working away from their country. I keep saying this to Amanda, and I say affectionately in Cameroon, we'll call her a bush faller. She left UK and fall bush to Australia. Now we came now to an advocacy manager. We are now moving to the next lady. It might be me, my ignorance, but think about a lady, professional professor of law at the University of Manchester, a professor lecturer in law at the University of Manchester. This is no mean feat. Manchester University is one of the top universities in the world, and Rachael Ntongho actually lectures law. So Rachael, you've got the microphone.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to share my experience, and for putting this together. Is very important for our community. And I'm happy that the University of Manchester offers the speech and therapist program. So I'm not yet speaking on behalf of Manchester University. I'm speaking as Rachael. So a lot of my experience will draw from University of Manchester and all the other universities I've taught at. Most of them in Greater Manchester, MMU, Salford, Bolton. But I'll do my best to refer to other areas or other jurisdictions or countries where I can. So I'll be talking about the legal profession. I am a lecturer, which most of the time takes you a while. You have to have a degree in law. I have a degree in law. I have a master's, a master's, and a PhD. Most of the time today, you need a PhD to get into academia. But most people do not get into academia. So I will not talk about myself today. I'll talk about the legal profession, especially the ones that most people want to study law or want to get into law, if they don't have a law degree, will get into. So the discussion, I'll talk about what I do in my law certificate, as I said, rather not me, because most people will become barristers or solicitor if they do a law degree. Or even if you don't do a law degree, the UK has simplified becoming a solicitor, so you can still become a solicitor without a law degree, as you see in the slides. And then I'll talk about other legal careers. So in terms of becoming a barrister or a solicitor, the UK differentiates between a barrister and a solicitor. Most jurisdictions do not do that. Those of us from Cameroon know that you are a lawyer. You are both a barrister and a solicitor. The US is similar. You know, Canada, but Australia follows the UK example where they separate the role of a barrister and a solicitor. Barrister mostly deals with advocacy. So they are the ones who see in court, representing clients, defending cases. They do mediations, especially with divorce cases. You have to go through a mediation or arbitration, used mostly in commercial disputes. Why solicitors is the ones that most of us deal with. Most of us who bought houses, it has to go through a solicitor. So most of us would have dealt with a solicitor at some point. If you want to draft a will, which we're encouraged to do, you go through a solicitor, buying real estate, legal advice. If solicitors do mostly with the draftings of the legal documents. If it's something that needs to go to court, because you cannot agree, for example, then they will refer it to the barristers, but they do most of the legal drafting part of the legal work. But I said in most jurisdictions, the role is merged. So you are a lawyer. Some countries is also different. Cameroon, even though we are a bi-jural system, we apply both the common and the civil law. The common law, which is the English legal system, applies in the two English-speaking provinces, and the civil law in the French provinces. But still, you are a barrister or a lawyer of the Supreme Court of Cameroon, so you can practice in any jurisdictions. So studying law in Cameroon is no mean feat, because we do lots and lots of units, because you do like family law, and you do droit civil, you do, tort law, and you do droit des obligations, which are different concepts and two traditions. So any Cameroonian lawyer would just be interested in conflicts of laws and comparative analysis, because we deal with it every day. US also have similar jurisdictions, because you are a lawyer in the New York bar. So again, some jurisdictions are separate in different ways, maybe because they have different legal systems in one country, but some because they separate the different jurisdictions, which in the UK can be a good thing, because we'll see how they've simplified becoming a barrister and a solicitor. So to become a barrister or a solicitor, you usually are required to go through 3 stages. So you have a degree. With solicitors, as we'll see, not necessarily in law. So the academic stage is you going to university having a degree. The vocational stage is you having some kind of work experience, or going into a university and doing a barrister course, or in other institutions like Barbary. And then you all need some kind of work experience. 2 years for solicitors, 1 year for barristers. So this is a route to becoming a barrister in the UK. As I said, the law profession generally, we are going to talk about challenges, but the legal profession, one of the biggest issue that most people say is that it's very, very elitist. And it is true, it is. In the Supreme Court, of all the 15 Supreme Court judges, including the supplementary judges, all of them are from Oxbridge, Oxford or Cambridge. They only, except for one judge who is from the University of Manchester. So that is how elitist law can be. I met him once and I said, how does it feel being the only judge not from Oxbridge? I said, I don't think it really represents the community. He says, I don't feel that, I don't see it that way. I said, I see it that way from the outside. You cannot convince somebody in Rochdale that the Supreme Court represents the UK community, having only Oxbridge graduates. So yes, law is elitist, but they've simplified the route to becoming a barrister, which now you normally need a law degree to become a barrister. So anybody can become a barrister. If you pass the solicitor's qualifying exam, we've got SQE 1 and 2. You have the required 2 years work experience, which can be done in 4 different organizations, again, to make it easy. Because to have a training programs can be difficult, again, because we all know getting a job needs connections. And yeah, the lawyers, prime ministers, most presidents have some kind of legal education. So the law is competitive in that way. because you're dealing with the children of those at the top echelon of society. So having a training contract can be difficult, but it's been simplified. You can have it in up to 4 organizations, even in working in a legal department in a company. So for example, if you work in a legal department of Tesco, you can use that as work experience to be able to qualify as a solicitor. So of course, you apply to the Solicitors Qualified Regulatory Authorities, admissions, which is really just going through the ethics part. For example, don't have a criminal record if you want to become a solicitor, don't have bankruptcy record, that can also be a problem. And then you get admitted into the solicitor's profession. So that's the route of going a solicitor. So said you have to have a UK degree or any level 6 qualification. So not necessarily a law degree, which is very good. So if anyone is thinking of changing career into the law profession, it is possible. You don't need a law degree to become a barrister today. So long as you can pass the SQE 1 and 2, there are institutions that offer the preparatory programs, but you don't need to go through the preparatory programs. It's like some of us here go and sit the New York bar. We just prepare by ourselves and go and sit the New York bar. So it's similar now to becoming solicitors in the UK. But you must have the 2 years work experience. It can be where you're working at the end, so long as a qualified solicitors can attest that you've met the requirements of the job experience aspect of the training. So you've acquired all the skills required, then that's fine. Then all you have to do is apply to the Solicitors Regulatory Authority. So they've simplified the route to becoming a solicitor today in the UK. With the barristers, it's a bit different. To become a barrister, you must have a law degree. If you don't have a law degree, then you do have to do a law conversion course, which is called the Graduate Diploma in Law, the GDL, which is a 1-year program. So even if you don't want you don't have a law degree and still aspire to become a barrister, you can still do the GDL for 1 year, which will you study the 7 foundation of legal knowledge. There are 7 units that we call the foundation of legal knowledge units that every barrister is required to take. So they'll focus on those, and it will bring you up to par to having a degree, and you'll be able to follow the rest of the route to becoming a barrister. You have to join one of the Inns of Court, which is attending dinners, actual dinners in London. So it's more prestigious. But when choosing the Inns of Court, they are different. Some offer lots of scholarships. Some have more minority programs. So those are the things that we advise students to look at when they are getting into the which Inns of Court to pick. But they all do the same thing. Then you have to have a training contract. Pupillage, you do a training contract with usually like the University of Law or Barbary, and a pupillage, and then you are admitted to the barristers program. So unlike solicitors, with barristers, you must have a law degree. There are many careers that a solicitor, a barrister can get into. That's why the law is a very, very sought after degree. Maybe after the medical degree, in the humanities, economics and law are very sought after because you acquire lots and lots of skills when you take a law degree. We do a lot of mooting, debating, so you get advocacy skills, working in teams, problem-solving skills, analytical skills. So law is a very, very good degree to have generally in the humanities because you acquire lots and lots of different skills. We'll talk about the challenges later, but yes, you do have to read a lot, but it's because you need to acquire all those skills. The kind of careers you can get into, you can work in the law commissions where you help to draft laws. There are those who make changes in the laws. The paralegal, so you work in a solicitor's firm. So you are not a solicitor, but you assist the solicitors maybe to do searches, like when people are buying houses. You can be a legal clerk in the legal department. You can work in education like myself, not necessarily teach in the university. Colleges offer law. There's A-level law, so you can also teach law in colleges. The non-law jobs. You can work in citizen advice bureau where you advise clients on different aspects of the rule of the land. You can be a company secretary. Almost every company will have a legal department. If they need things to be filed, like companies to file documents in company's house, changing directors, financial statements and all that, those are the kind of things you'll be doing. Again, in sales, making sure if there's a new law, whether it's in the environment or health and safety, you meet the deadlines and things like that. In communication, human resources, local authorities, and main staff politics. Said most politicians are lawyers because they are good with arguments and debates. Keir Starmer, for example, I don't know if it's a good example of a politician, but yes, he is a lawyer. So yeah, so Bill Clinton, lots of lawyers get to do politics because they said you have all these different skills you've acquired that politicians will need, which is you feel it gives you the confidence to get out there and argue any kind of position to a logical conclusion. For those who are looking at getting into the law profession, especially those who are not lawyers or didn't think of it in the beginning, or you have other careers but you want to move into law, we have the vacation schemes, which are open to all students or all degrees, really. So they are usually short 2 weeks program in the summer, in spring, in Christmas. So one of the ways to get into law is to try to apply for some of these vacation schemes and try it out if it is what you want. So spend 2 weeks working in a law firm. With our law students, we advise them to do it in different areas of the law. Some students come into law and say, oh, I would like to do family law. At the end of the day, they move to commercial law, or, they move to some other area. So again, if there's a particular area in law, whether it's real estate, is family law, public law, human rights that you are interested in, you can get to a law firm and see if that's for you. And move around the law firm if you have the opportunity to find out which area of the law you are interested in. So application usually opens in October. Maybe it's better to give an example. So I keep to the time. That's an example of a vacation scheme from White and Case. I just picked them randomly. I don't have any affiliation with White and Case. So, but we have lots of firms offer this kind of vacation schemes. As you can see there, it's for any degree discipline. So anyone with a degree, if you want to get into law, or finally, most of them are not for first year students, second year and third year students, of open to any degree. So if you are interested in law, want to move into law, one of the most prominent judges of UK, Lord Denning, anybody that studied law, or if there's anybody in the room, a lawyer, you know Lord Denning. He did maths, but most of his friends were lawyers, and after he finished his maths degree, he decided to do a law degree and became one of the most reputable judges in the UK. He wrote a lot of legal, good neighbor policy in tort law, for instance, in negligence was, initiated by him, inscribed by him. So he has, he's a very known judge. When he got it right, he got it really right. He got some really, cases that he had, but when he got things right, he got them really right. But this is one way in which, if you're looking at getting into law, or if you're taking a law degree, if your child is taking a law degree, you can encourage them to take vacation schemes and work in different areas of the law to find out where their specialism is, where they really want to work at, which area of the law they are interested in, or if they want to stay in the legal profession. In Manchester University, 50% of our students become barristers or solicitors, 50% go into other areas of the law. So it's very good to do vacation schemes, to have some kind of experience and also find out if law is for you. These are just some useful websites that you can look into. That's the Solicitors Regulatory Authorities, the Bar Standard Board website, Pupillage Gateway. Pupillage, they offer different advertisements on solicitors training contracts and pupilages. As I said, with law, there are often lots of scholarships because I won't sugarcoat it. We know law is elitist, but there are lots and lots of scholarships there. And for the minorities program, men, for some reason, are really falling behind. I don't know why. I don't know whether men get into crime more than women or because of criminal record more than women. Yeah, the last student I had to cancel, it was this black child from Birmingham, went out drinking on a normal student's day out, spat on a police officer, ended up with a criminal record. And I told him, you are getting to the legal profession, you shouldn't do things like that. But there are lots of scholarships for, black men. Manchester has 2 scholarships a year for black males. And there are years that we don't fill it up and we have to get the women to fill it up. So let's encourage our men, especially. I know I'm a woman here, but let's encourage our boys to get into the legal profession because there are a lot of scholarships for them because the women seems to be doing well in the legal profession for some reason. I don't know why, more than the men, more than our male children. That's so thanks very much. I didn't mention these challenges, but I'm sure I've mentioned them on my own. One is the perception. Well, it's not the perception. Becoming a barrister can be a bit elitist. Becoming a solicitor is very, very open. It's competitive, it's challenging. Law, you have to read a lot, but yes, becoming a solicitor is not that difficult. It's becoming a barrister that can be a bit challenging. But there are lots and lots of scholarship for minorities because they're trying to get more minorities to become barristers. And it's a sought after degree, so sometimes the requirements can be high. With Manchester, the entry requirement is A-star AA. So that's another, but that's Manchester again is Russell Group. You can do law anywhere. In terms of the career, there can be long hours, especially for barristers. One student once asked me, why do I choose to be in academia rather than become a barrister or solicitor? With becoming a barrister or a solicitor, you might make more money, especially if you're a successful barrister. You definitely will make more money than academia. There is, you will hardly be rich become in academia. You have to love the profession, you have to love the research, you have to love teaching and dealing with students, but it's more flexible. Unlike becoming a barrister, where if you've got a very, interesting case in your hands, you might have to spend long hours in the office. So again, life is about balance, where you are, at what stage of your career. If you have children like I do, working, I'm happy that, I can drop and pick my child from school in academia. I can give my presentation from Atlanta. It's flexible, but if you need to go to the office 5 days a week, that's that's what that is for being barristers. But yeah, you make more money becoming a barrister. So thank you very much. I'll stop sharing and I'll take the questions. I hope I kept to the time.
Hello. Yeah, wonderful. Another wonderful presentation. In fact, all 3 of you. And here is another very passionate delivery. Yes, we're going to come to the open house, but before we go to that, it's fascinating to see the range of what I find interesting is the fact that you've essentially read the brief and kept to the brief. What is the brief? We are looking at using this YPCM to effectively provide advice to those who are looking at various career avenues. And I can see your presentation has actually addressed that, how to become a barrister, and all the resources that you've given us, just like the other speakers did as well. One lingering thing, though, I want to go around the one about the argument, because you just told me that nobody can win an argument against a lawyer. I'm not going to talk about that one. But the one lingering thing, though, is as a lecturer of law, university lectureship, there is this headache at the moment about AI. For you as a lecturer, how do you actually address, because we understand that university students nowadays, they do everything. AI does everything for them. Is that something that you lose sleep over as a university lecturer, especially in law? AI,
Yes.
artificial intelligence, for
Yes.
those who may not be aware what I'm getting.
Yes.
AI nowadays does everything.
Yeah, I'm the program director for law for the undergraduate program, and yes, that's one area where we struggle with. Universities are still implementing the COVID plan, at least Manchester is. Some universities, some London universities have gone back to in-person exams. So actually having students sitting in the classroom for 3 hours and writing the exams. But Manchester, we still do a 24-hour exam, which comes with additional issues with AI, with ChatGPT and all that. We have turning in, which picks up what work that has already been submitted. But we don't have a platform yet or any, technology that can identify work that has been, produced by ChatGPT, which is a big problem. So it's up to us to identify. Some lecturers take a very strict approach, some take a more lenient approach. And with students, you want the marks to be fair, to be consistent. So it's a big issue. Up to now, I can't say we've handled it as we should because we don't have a consistent plan. The University of Manchester, really, we are still struggling with a consistent way of addressing it. Having some kind of technology that we can fit information into and it tells us where it's coming from, and having a consistent way of dealing with it. That's all lecturers marking at the same level. Not some lecturers being very strict and others being less strict. The younger generation, as you know, they are more internet savvy than we are. So they are one step ahead. I take a balanced approach, but some people really take a strict approach, which is good. But one way to address it is having in-person exam. You talked about having a viva, but oral exam is too, too costly. We don't have the logistics. Most of the Russell Group University with 1,000 LLB students will not have the logistics to do an oral exam for 1,000 students. So the best way to address it might be going back to in-person exams.
So the flip side of this is, which you ask, because people are thinking about various careers to go to.
Yeah.
The flip side of this is, with the whole proliferation of the AI nowadays, do you see AI as a threat to the career of a lawyer or as a law lecturer? Where do you see that?
Yeah, because the internet, as you know, is not perfect. It will generate some kind of advice, but it will still need a human person to look at it. And with the law, the most difficult part of the law are the exceptions. We have one law, do not kill, and then we have 10 exceptions. If a child is hungry, they can steal. If it's self-defense, you can kill. If it's so we have one law and one exception. So the judge's role really is to see if it's not only to apply the law, but mostly to look at if it falls within the exceptions. And that would need a human person to be able to analyze it to come to that decision. Most times when people look at cases on TV, they will say, oh, this is not fair. If you don't have the evidence, then the judge cannot convict. If it falls within the accepted exceptions, again, the judge will not convict. So yes, it might take away some jobs. It might make it easier the way we do things. I'll put it that way. However, I don't think it will replace lawyers fully. Yeah.
That's what a fantastic place was reassuring note to end the three presentations. We're about to move into the open house, and I just want to say that all three speakers have been really amazing. Amanda Burns actually addressed this. We are looking at the world of work today, so that those who are looking at coming to the world of work, this whole YPCM program is to effectively signpost them based on the contacts, what we know of Cameroonians, other Black minority ethnic people in what they are doing in the world of work, and sort of giving avenues to people. We started this the fourth session. We have already covered 9, in fact, that's 12 areas of career development, which we've actually addressed so far. But today we focus on 3. which is essentially looking at what we call the bushfaller approach, where people have decided to leave their country to come and work elsewhere. But also by so doing, we're looking at 3 areas. People are moving out of their comfort zone, or some are creating innovative careers. Amanda Burns looked at moving from the UK to the Australia to work as not from the traditional nursing, but into emergency nursing and outpost nursing in remote areas. Very intrepid, I must say. We then had Claris. Essentially, Claris was looking at she had a very captivating personal story, which she then turned that personal story into effectively a career, from an experience of a parent to the expertise that she gained from looking after that parent, of being a parent with a young person with certain challenging needs. She then developed that into a career, which I would think that needs to go even further, all the way to, because the world today is a world of equity. Equity needs advocacy managers. Equity with regards to diversity, inclusion, need advocacy managers. Claris would need to take that all the way forward if she took take my advice. We finished off the session today with Dr. Rachael Ntongho. Rachael is a lecturer of law at the University of Manchester. What I find interesting, Rachael, is encapsulate what the others have also done by giving us clearly the path as to how do you arrive at that particular career. She took us through the various process, how to become a solicitor or a barrister. We have here, looking at the screen, people from all over the world. We have people from Cameroon, from Australia, from US, Canada. I can see our friend, Professor Eric Lukong, is right there from Saskatchewan, who spoke the last time about medical, clinical, as a clinical scientist like myself. We have a whole range of people from all over the world, in fact. So this is the point where I will pass over the microphone to my co-moderator, Dr. Kojo Ndenecho, and Kojo would then take us through what comments people have been leaving on the platform. We have an open house QA, question and answers, and then we'll finish off with the closing remarks, which should be coming from the president or the chairperson of CamDocUK, Dr. Linda Bello. So please, Linda, don't go away. You have to close the session. But then before that, Dr. Kojo Ndenecho, Vice Chair of CamDocUK, Forensic Medical Examiner and Medical Examiner, Prince of our Wing. You've got a microphone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Chief. What a fantastic panel. We've had this panelists, and you can tell how people have been listening very, very intently and your story. So I would just go with one of the 2 questions for Amanda, then I would then also go for questions that I've seen for Claris as well, and then we'll then do Rachel's later on. So Amanda, there are 2 questions, one of which was from myself, and then there is another one from a newly registered qualified nurse. My question was, and you can take, I'll just put the 2, then you can then answer them in whatever order. Yours is an adventurous career, adventure in the sense of not just doing something very different, but actually going into different, very far off lands, almost like an explorer. So the question is, what took you to Australia? Did you have any links? And this not just only going into Australia, but also then moving from the centerpiece of hospitals and going into this remote, into practicing rural medicine. That was the question from myself. The next question comes from this newly registered nurse, a newly qualified nurse who is on iPhone. She essentially is asking, she listened to you with in awe, and was very interested in the toolbox. She's trying to do a toolbox for herself, and says, she needs help on how to do her own toolbox, on top of things of building resilience, which it does require. Are there any reliable sources for her or him building up this toolbox? Those are the two questions for you.
Thanks, Kojo. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, going to the Australia link, I have my parents to blame for that because I went there as a child. As I don't know if some of you are aware of a £10 POM. So Australia in the 1970s had a deal where people from England could go to Australia and take their family for £10. And I was with my parents, the four of us went to my brother, and we went to Australia, but we didn't stay. We stayed for a number of years, and then we came back to England. But we had the opportunity, we got a certificate which said we could go back again in the future, which later on we did. So the reason the link to Australia for me is through my family, my parents. So that's that. And the sense of adventure, well, I have to go back to my grandparents because my grandparents were very adventurous and my parents were very adventurous, taking a young family. I was 3 when I went to Australia. So I think the whole adventure thing to me, and being that world citizen and knowing about the horizon, and all of you here, I'm sure listening, are very, very cognizant of what is beyond the horizon. And all of you have already, I'm sure, gone across that horizon and reached for something different, something new. And I was brought up in that environment, brought up in that family. And I'm grateful for that. And that is part of who I am, even now. Definitely. Actually, I'm not talking to you from the UK. I'm sitting in France because always I'm seeking a new horizon. So yes, that one. Now, the second question around a toolbox. Resilience. Oh my goodness. I feel like this word is written in capital letters for all of us. I mean, there's 3 professionals sitting here on this esteemed panel tonight. We have a lawyer, we have a speech and language therapist, resilience, and all of you listening. Gosh, I would like to ask all of you this same question. How do you approach the subject of resilience? For me, resilience is multifaceted. I think it comes from mental wellness, physical wellness, emotional wellness. And how do so when I'm thinking about that, I have to eat well. I need to look after my emotional resilience, and I need to connect with the people who love me. So resilience for me, a toolbox for resilience is, and then professional, absolutely what I talked about in my presentation, having the skills when I'm working as a remote area nurse, having the skills to deal with what walks through the door. So that's fine. I can go and do courses for that. But then I think about the other tools of resilience, which are emotional. So I have a fantastic family who I can connect with, who we love each other. I can talk about anything. So I think that's the other thing. And then physical resilience. So looking after myself with what I put in and what I have, because this is a tool. My body is a tool. So resilience is not just about one thing. It's a professional thing. It's an emotional thing. It's a physical thing. So I think working in the spaces I do, I need to look at all of those. And you know, like I say, screen time, eating well, sleeping well, hydrating, all the basic stuff. I hope that answers some of that question for that lovely person who asked that.
Yeah, it certainly does. It certainly does. You've really given a good account on on your character and developing and how to go through those challenging times and doing so safely. The other side, I think she may also be asking is, how do you set yourself about building your professional toolbox? And I guess that may be also relation, you may say, that will be in relation to identifying a goal or identifying areas, and then you build the toolbox. But I'll leave that to you to just expatiate on how you build that professional toolbox as well.
Yes,
From
okay.
reliable sources, yes, and
Yeah,
sources.
yeah, definitely. Reliable sources. I mean, we all go to Google. I'm guilty. We're all guilty of Googling, but reliable sources, yes. But a professional toolbox, for me, as I said in my presentation, I was very strategic. I knew that I wanted to work in remote areas. So places where, like I go to places where there are maybe 500 people living in a community, and it's a clinic. So, and I'm working in that clinic. Doctors maybe come once a week. So, and I'm on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I switched that with another nurse, 2 of us work. So I knew I wanted to go there. So the toolbox I needed to do that was I needed to definitely be an emergency nurse. So I needed to, first of all, have emergency nurse skills so that if somebody comes in having a heart attack, I know what to do immediately, what to do. And then, but then I also realized that I couldn't go there straight from the end of university. So I knew there was going to be a period of time, a number of years from finishing my degree as a nurse to working in the remote space. Now, the toolbox is built between point A and point B. The toolbox is built. You add to that toolbox on the journey as you go. So the first step was working in an emergency department, dealing with those presentations when you are surrounded by doctors and other clinicians who teach you what to do. And then you do courses which give you more confidence. And then the next step for me was going to work in rural spaces, which were not as far in Australia, like not as far out in the desert, but halfway. So the toolbox was for me a process from A to B, but A to Z, but it had like a bit of a pathway through. It helps.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. So stay on.
Yeah.
And I will move on to to issues or questions raised towards Claris. Claris, there's a lot of accolades for you for having navigated so much right from bottom to the top and using adversity, as you say, from our late colleague, Dr. Emmanuel Nsutebo, who wrote a book, From Struggles to Success. This is a classic example of it. Finding yourself with an autistic child, that you have an autistic child with, of course, communication. And by the way, I share that with you. I've got a 26-year-old autistic child with profound learning and communication difficulties. So you then use that and then as a base and actually as an inspiration to becoming a speech and language therapist right close to your mid-40s or even above that. So there's a lot of accolades there coming from Dr. Anne Barbarins about your resilience and your demonstration and determination. And that's the same goes for from Vera Folemo now, and also for Annette. Now, I would ask, there was a question from one of our CamDoc members, and interestingly, is a specialist in ear, nose, and throat. So coming your way. And she's asking, and that's from Dr. Eugenie Mempo. And she's just asking, like many people will be asking her as a mother as well, that the concerns, do you see there are concerns that children are now growing up with the use of a lot of technology? So you've got the iPads and the notebooks and the smartphones, and that there's this sort of very rampant or extensive use of it from very early on. Does that affect development of speech in your practice? And what would you advise?
Okay, that's fine. Yes, there's an interesting question. It has both negatives and positives as well. And I want to say one of the negatives, which may be a bit obvious, is there are actually there's research in this area, so which says a prolonged use of screen time, watching lots of videos or playing non-interactive games, is linked to delays in expressive language, a reduced vocabulary growth in children, and even poor conversational turn-taking, which is one of the targets that I'm working with some of my students. It may not be as a result of them being playing so much on screens, etc. But one of the difficulties that some of our children with autism have is that turn-taking, not only in playing games, but conversational turn-taking. So prolonged use of screens, prolonged use of non-interactive games on the screen can actually delay a child's can actually lead to a delay in a child's expressive language and will lead to poor conversational turn-taking. However, I will also look at it in another way. As a speech and language therapist, I approach a child who doesn't have verbal communication. My first instinct is I will be asking, so if they cannot communicate verbally, can they communicate at all? How can they communicate? How do I help them to be able to communicate? So there are so many different ways that children can use to communicate. And one of them is using AAC. And AAC is augmentative alternative communication, which means other methods of communication, since they can't communicate verbally. And most of these AACs we are using speech generated devices, which means a child would have an iPad with an app on the iPad. So in the past, a few parents around, they've asked me, oh, where did you buy your child's iPad? Because I want to get one for my child. First of all, I'll ask them, why do you need an iPad for your child? Many parents didn't take that positively, because some parents see it now as a pride to give an iPad to a 2-year-old, to a 3-year-old to play games. Yes, it can also help in a way in the expressive communication, maybe in the visual communication as well, but it may have a long-term effect. But it is positive when a child is using this in a positive way, because they are using that tablet as their communication device, because they have a communication app inside. So this tablet as well can also act in maybe well, I think I've talked about it's used as an alternative method of communication, but it affects the child as well. So they can also use it for interaction, maybe playing games. But when a child stays for too long using the tablet, our natural ways of communicating with our children, interacting with our children or with others is eliminated. We don't have that one-to-one communication with individuals because the child is glued on the screen. You can't have any conversation with them. You can't have any play in the garden. So it reduces their social interactions. It may also affect them mentally. Sometimes children who watch a lot of screen, they get very, very exhausted at night. Maybe a very medical person can explain this, but I know it has an effect on the brain. So it's a two-way thing. It depends on why the child is using the iPad or the tablet, but prolonged use of an iPad will lead to delayed expressive communication, delayed conversational turn-taking. So
yeah, I notice quite well, just like everything in moderation, And then there's also the aspect, I would imagine, the aspect of age-appropriate interaction, age-appropriate, use of it. But it didn't escape me hearing you say interactive, because that the interaction means, therefore, that there's some learning that can take place. But
Yes.
there are things which are just films, which are just cartoons, and just plain, and there is no interaction. There's just one side listening to. So that is, I guess that's something you will be you're also saying, for there is room for interactivity where you take turns in learning things or talking about things.
Yeah, so I think one of the children's programs now, Miss Rachael, is quite educative. It's quite educational, or it helps little babies. But however, we should use them in moderation, bearing in mind that excessive use can lead to delays in expressive language, delayed vocabulary growth, and poor conversational turn taking, because you are not actually communicating with your child. That is, if your child doesn't have any underlying health issues. So this may lead to a delay in expressive language, reduced vocabulary, or conversational turn taking. Because if they're on the screen, you're having a conversation with them, they can't. That turn taking is not happening because they are glued on the screen.
Yeah, thank you so much. Of course, we also know, even in the media, most good number of times, parents also give them those tools, because then they can have quiet and peace.
Yeah.
As well. So, which is terribly not so good. Okay, so now coming into Dr. Rachael Ntongho here, we had some reactions, and somebody who was that was Prudence. She was very, very impressed on how you explained the AI, the use of AI with students there. And of course, we know that this has come to, in one area, some areas it's come to simplify work for us, and in other cases it makes it more complex, and it makes it where is your own personal knowledge, and where is the knowledge coming, where is AI, the boundaries of that. And she was very impressed on how you explained that. I would have a question for you, because you had a lot which you explained to us about the new barriers being broken down, the difficulties in accessing and becoming solicitors. So the requirements of having a law degree becoming less, and also how trying to get to become a barrister, which we know these things are very, very hard, challenging, very elitist. And it's not just elitist for us, but you've done well in doing so. I would ask you, because I heard you mention doing degrees in your, or you may use this opportunity and explaining to us the degrees you had in Cameroon, and the transition here coming into the UK in terms of either recognition of this and then getting into academia, which is another step. Now, can you just unravel that, what you may have just modestly kept in the background?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Kojo, for that question. I was fortunate that I studied the English private law. My degree is English private law. So I was able to teach some of the foundation courses at university, which helped a lot. And also my research area is corporate governance, commercial law, which is international. So when it comes to academia, your specialism is very important as well. Because with the Russell Group University, they don't only look at your contribution to teaching, they look at your contribution to research. So doing the good research in any area helps, irrespective of the jurisdictions you come from, because you can still teach courses at the master's levels, because we are all required to teach as well as doing research. Of course, most of our revenue comes from teaching. even though Russell Group University sometimes pay too much attention on the research, but most of our revenue still come from teaching. So we still put a lot of emphasis on the teaching aspect, on improving at the teaching excellence part of our work, of what universities are set up to do. But yes, coming from Cameroon gives us that double advantage, if you like, that we have two of the most popular legal systems, the common law and the civil law. And I studied in the University of Yaoundé too, which is a very confusing system when you look at it from outside. But being in it yourself really helps when you come out, because you are able to dip your hands in different things, you're able to teach different things, which is very helpful when it comes to having a job in academia. So being able to have studied, the fact that I studied in the common law system helped. The fact that I'm doing comparative analysis also helped, that I can do, multi-jurisdictional law. I can look at things from different perspectives. I can write looking at different perspectives. I can access more documents. My French is passable, assez bien, but it's okay. It helps as well. So having all that, gave me an advantage coming here. But if anyone wants to get into academia, it's very important that they have a PhD from a Russell Group University. It's very important that you have a PhD from a good university. University is not classified. We don't have a first class, second class, third class when it comes to PhDs. It is classified based on the university. So if your PhD is from Oxford, it will be considered higher than a PhD from Manchester. If you're PhD from Manchester, it will be considered higher than a PhD from maybe MMU, Manchester Metropolitan University. So that's how we classify university. It's not supposed to be that way, but that's how we classify university, because PhD is not classified. So if anybody in this forum is thinking of doing a PhD in whichever area, whatever area, do it in a Russell Group University, because it's going to be very important when it comes to getting a job. And being able to publish or be excellent in some particular niche area also is very, very, very important, because the academia is very, very competitive, very, very competitive today. Yeah. So the fact that Cameroon is Nigeria helped. Personally, the fact that I'm a commercial lawyer, which is more international, helps. If you do like criminal law, which applies territorially only in Cameroon, or you do land law, which is very territorial, that puts you in a disadvantage. Yeah. Thank you.
So I think that's very much, Chief. I think this is very much the summary of things that I've been able to gather in the background. Yes. You can see, yeah, very, very fantastic set of panelists, and lovely questions, and a lot of people have benefited from this, from your talks, and there's a lot of going to be a lot of inspiration. There's clearly the determination, the resilience that is running through all three of you in this, and I can't thank you enough for this. Chief, you take over.
Thank you so much. Our prince of our wing, Dr. Kojo Ndenecho, medical examiner, forensic examiner, based in, I think you work in the NHS in Kent as well as in Essex, vice chair of CamDocUK. Fantastic panelists we've had today. We've had Amanda Burns talk about working in Australia and in the UK, emergency medicine, as well as emergency nurse in emergency medicine, as well as in outpost working. Very intrepid traveler, I must say, which is why in Cameroon we use the expression bushfaller. We are all bushfallers, more or less. We left our home base and we are working out here. We are now, in fact, I said bushfaller, this is home, away from home. Whereas for Australia, for Amanda, home away from home is Australia as opposed to the UK. Anyway, before I summarize things and pass over to the chair of CamDocUK, there is a burning question that has just come in from Dr. Eugenie Mempho.
Yes, that's right.
Dr. Eugenie Mempho is the membership secretary of CamDocUK. This is very important because We are talking about the whole purpose of the YPCM is advising people on various career directions or to take at that where they're at that crossroads, whether just finishing their A-level or just had their degree. Eugenia's role at CamDocUK is membership secretary. She helps signpost navigate those who are newly joining the organization. Now, Eugenia would like to know, and it's a specific question to Claris. I hope Claris is still online. It says, as part of your advocacy, are you considering the development of sign language for people with learning disabilities, especially communication issues? We use British Sign Language for people with profound deafness. I've had last Friday a patient who came with a child with a Down syndrome, and I was really impressed by her sign to ask biscuits to her mother. I think the key issue here is, let me reposition this within the context of this whole YPCM. We are looking at careers. So this experience here, essentially, I think it's to do with the kind of thing that Amanda mentioned, the toolbox. The toolbox, what people need to have as they ask and prepare them as they're looking at that career. I suppose what Eugenie is suggesting here is one aspect in the people's toolbox there for somebody looking at advocacy with regards to supporting people with speech and language challenges is that idea of being able to address sign languages. I think that's where, but again, let me let the experts speak. Claris, are you still there? This is what Dr. Mempo would like to know. Are you actually considering development of sign language for people with learning disabilities, especially communication, perhaps even a Cameroon version, why not? Claris, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
And Claris, let me make sure Dr. Eugenie is the one who has the question before. She's an ear and nose and throat doctor specialist. So over to you.
I remember, Dr. Eugenie, when I worked in Cameroon last year, I was actually working I was placed in the ENT department in Bingo, in Com. So I worked with Dr. Asa'ah and his team. So yes, I am considering BSL, but I've never had the opportunity, maybe sometimes in the future, to do the BSL, which is used with people with profound deafness, as you've said. One little story. While I was assessing a child that was brought to me in Bingo in Com last year, this 12-year-old comes in with his grandma, and grandma says she was told that I'm a speech and language therapist and I help people to talk, to communicate. So grandma is asking me if I can help her grandson to be able to speak. So while assessing this child, I realized that he has never spoken, he has never heard. So he's actually deaf. So, and this child already has his mode of communication, which is sign language. Unfortunately, grandma has not had the opportunity to learn how to communicate, how to use sign language. So I had to explain to grandma that there are some children who can be helped, which in the long run may help in the development of their speech or of their different ways of communication. However, this little boy already has his mode of communication, which is the sign language, and that's how he talks. And so I had to encourage grandma that they should learn to communicate with the child the way he's communicating with them. So those are also some of the alternative means of communication with other people. People with learning disabilities or other forms of disabilities, here in the UK, we have Makaton. I don't know how worldwide Makaton is, but we have Makaton, which is a mode of communication. It uses speech, it uses signs, and it also uses symbols to lay emphasis on what you are saying. Initially, it was created for people with autism, people with Down syndrome, who have difficulties in expressing their needs or their wants. So in that way, if a child pulls you, takes you to the fridge or takes you to the cupboard and is taking a cup, so you can show a picture, but while showing that picture or showing that object, you can actually sign the cup or maybe a drink or cup or biscuit, as Dr. Eugenie mentioned earlier on. Yes, those are other alternative means of communication. And in the UK, it's the Makaton. I did Makaton way back in 2009. when I had my 15-year-old then, and while studying, I also, the Makaton was also one of our modules as well. I'm still to do Makaton at an advanced level. However, being in advocacy, being a specialist, we also explore those other ways of communication, because we will have parents coming in to see us. We also have to be able to understand them when they are communicating. Parents coming in with their children, we also have to know how to communicate with them as well. So there is
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, I must apologize for that we are overrunning, not because of the panelists. It's just that we had a technical issue at the start of for some reason, our link that we sent worldwide was corrupted, but it was rectified, and that caused a delay of about almost half an hour. That's explain why we're actually overrunning. I must acknowledge some fantastic feedback we're getting already, but please, before you leave, we have a tradition where you will need to, as you're trying to log out, you find that you have to complete a questionnaire, or just write to us. I acknowledge the comment from Bridget Watts. Bridget is actually my classmate going back to grammar school, man, for this long time ago. I can actually see, I think she's writing from Houston, America. Yes, we've had a fantastic 2 hours so far. We've had a whole range of some wonderful exchanges. We listened to Amanda spoke about nursing, emergency nursing, A&E nursing. We listened to Claris, who essentially addressed from a personal experience, she effectively developed a career line. But all along, and then we listened to Rachael, who spoke about law, how to working as a lawyer, lecturing as a lawyer at the Russell Group University, and also a lot of information as to how to actually practice law in the UK. We have that. So the purpose of this is to give people some sort of ideas as what career directions to follow. This is our 4th webinar. So we've covered over 12 areas. But please, people should write to us. There's a question in the panel asking how to write to us. You can use international@camdocuk.org, international@camdocuk.org. Send us an email, and that will be picked up, and that'll be actually, we can use that to link you up with any of the panelists, not just this particular session. And while at this, let me say that all the sessions are usually, they're recorded. They will then be edited, satisfactory, addressing the necessary data protection and all that. And then this is loaded onto our website, camdocuk.org. camdocuk.org. We load them there. And again, because it's a webinar for advising people on various careers opening, we circulate this to universities in Cameroon, so that the universities can actually use this information to also train, to also help other people. And these sessions are meant not just for graduates, they're also meant for those who are finishing their A-levels. The next point I want to say is that if people think of any other career area that they would like us to address, please write to us at international@camdocuk.org, and we will always look at, because we're looking at other future panels that we can fit those career queries onto those panels so that people can get as much information as possible. I want to say that I've already mentioned how the recording is going to be used. Before you have mentioned the feedback. Can I say that we also have a database because of this project, a very robust database of CVs. Or we are having lots of expertise actually that we're actually collating. Whatever you would like to know about any panelists or even any other areas that you've not seen on the panel, just write to us at international@camdocuk.org. Of course, we will obviously address this within the framework of data protection as a professional organization, as our policy. What else do I need to say other than to say to thank all of you, the panelists, and those who took their time.
Chief,
I'm coming to the chairperson.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Just to say that we always run this on this last Sunday of the month. Our inspection suggested to us that the best time to address this, because that's the origin of it. Families were approaching us to advise them on where their children finishing A-level, what career direction to take, or those that have recently graduated. By inspection, it came to us obvious that the best ideal time was Sunday evening, and we decided that we could do one session a month. That's how people might want to know, why are we doing at this time of the day? It seems to be us to be the best time. And as I mentioned, what usually comes out here is that, just more for the purpose of the panel, is your valuable time is given us. It might seem 50 people today, but that's effectively, by our own formula, that's over 250 people going to access this, and even many more for years to come, because it's all be loaded on our website. It now gives me the pleasure, it's at this point I'll say, okay, Chief Asa'ah, I've been your host, your moderator for today. I was supported by the Vice Chair, Dr. Kojo Ndenecho, as co-moderator. We also had in the background our technical team, Dr. Anna Benenga, who is the communication officer. We had Eugenie Mempo, Dr. Eugenie Mempo, ENT surgeon, who is the membership secretary. We had a number of other CamDocUK, Dr. Valentine Ngwa, consultant in geriatric medicine, immediate lead for past lead for education at CamDocUK. We have a number of other CamDocUK members. At this point, let me bring in the boss to give us the final remarks. The boss, by this I mean Dr. Linda Bello, who is a GP in Colchester and London, and is also an examiner. Dr. Linda Bello, Chairperson of CamDocUK, you've got the microphone.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chief. Good evening again to our dear panelists and those watching at home. Thank you so much to our three amazing panelists, Amanda, Claris, Rachel. Your presentations were really inspiring and insightful. You've all shown us the breadth of opportunities that exist, but more importantly, the persistence and creativity it takes to walk those paths. What I especially wanted to highlight is the can-do advice that you've each shared. While many of us here might already have established our careers, the advice that you've given is truly invaluable for our young ones, the students, the graduates, the early professionals who are finding their way. So this series really is about giving them real mentorship, showing them role models and proving that their goals are achievable. As Chief said, this session has been recorded and will be shared so that many more can benefit from it. So please pass on to younger colleagues, friends, family members who might be inspired by what we have all heard today. So on behalf of CamDocUK, thank you for joining us this evening. Let's keep supporting, mentoring, and lifting up the next generation of Cameroonian professionals. Have a wonderful evening all. Thank you.